Have you ever searched for a home on one of those big name home search sites? If you have, what happens the first time you click on any house, like it, favorite it, request some information? What happens? Put it in the comments down below. Let me know. So the first thing that happens is your phone blows up, right? People start calling you left and right. And who's calling you? It's the real estate agents, right? How do they get your phone number? How do they know what house you're looking at, your price range, the town you're looking at? How do they get all that information? This is part 2 of my 4-part series on the buyer experience. In part 1 of the video, I talked about the 5 things you need to do before you go look. There's a link to the video in the description down below. Click on it if you haven't seen it because it's got some good information in it. I'm Dave with the Bolduc Realty Group. This video is part 2 of the buyer experience. And we're talking about the 4 things that you need to do when you're out there looking at houses, right? When you're out there in the house. So those are the online search, tours or showings going to see the house, sense of urgency, and adjusting your needs or wants as you learn. The first thing we need to talk about is the online search. Most people start their search online, like 90% of people these days. Most people then carry on using that same home search website even after they've connected with an agent, which is something that I recommend you do in part 1 of this video series. I'm going to go over a few reasons why it may be a good idea to think about an alternative approach. The first reason you may want to consider an alternative approach, and this goes back to that question that I left hanging at the intro, how do these agents get my contact information? Well, these big name home search sites, one of the primary ways they make money is they sell your contact information to a bunch of agents. Not the listing agent, not the agent that you pick to work with, but just random agents out there. That's one of the ways they make their money. Check their privacy policy. Look where it says how we use your information. What it'll say is something along the lines of, if you request information on a house, then we will share that information with our partner, realtors, lenders, whatever. And what they're not saying is they're selling it to you, and those agents are paying a pretty penny. How do I know that? Because I used to buy them. If you use my website, and what I recommend is that when you're picking an agent, get an agent that has a website that is search capable and connected to the MLS. A lot of agents have them. If you look at my website and you search on a house and you like it, I'm the only one who's notified. You're not going to get a call from 100 agents. On top of that, there's some connectivity there. You can just forward the house to me through my website. You can send me a text. You can send me an email. You can request a showing. It makes things a lot easier. It makes the communication a lot better. So that's one reason to consider. The second reason you may want to consider an alternative approach is data accuracy. Just imagine, you may have this experience. Going onto a big name home search website, you find the house that's perfect, exactly what you want. Call up an agent. We need to get into this house today. I want to put an offer in. Oh my God, this is perfect. And then you get one of 3 typical responses. Number 1, that house went under contract 3 weeks ago. Number 2, that house has been closed for a couple of months. It's not active. Or number 3, that house hasn't been for sale since like 2010. It's not for sale. A lot of data is very inaccurate on those websites. The agent websites that I was referring to earlier, they're connected to the MLS. They get updated every 10 minutes or so. And that's just about near time. That's almost as good as going on to the live MLS. It's pretty darn good. That data accuracy makes your life a little bit easier. And again, the communication back and forth with the agent is very important. Another reason why you may want to consider an alternative approach. The third reason is the home valuation estimate. Called an AVM, which stands for Automated Valuation Model, AVM. It's the little thing that you see on the screen when you look at these big home search websites where they estimate the value of the house. Each one has a name for it. You could probably list off a couple of the names. Those are horribly inaccurate. They're really good for long-term trending. Are the value of houses going up or are they going down? But right now, what's the value? They can be plus or minus 40%. That's a big difference. Don't take my word for it. What I want you to do is I want you to Google the following term, and I'm going to put it right here on the screen. I'm going to read it. It's a real estate company shutters home flipping business in 2021. Google that. You're going to find an article about a very famous big name home search company that lost over $800 million. I think it was 881, but I might be wrong. That's almost $1 billion with a B that they lost because they were using their AVM to buy houses. So remember, they sell leads to agents. Instead of selling those leads, they were scooping them, buying the houses from the sellers, and then trying to resell them. So what they were doing is they were taking the AVM value. If they could buy the house for less than that AVM value, then they could sell it for the AVM value. That difference was profit for them. Unfortunately, the AVM value is wrong. And it was so bad that they lost out $881 million. And thousands of people lost their jobs as a result. In 2022, a second company that was doing that same thing, and you'll probably find that article as well, a second company that was doing the same thing closed down their home flipping business because they lost a bunch of money and had to lay off a bunch of people as well. The AVMs on there are not taking into account everything that needs to be taken into account. So be very careful. Real estate is very local. You need someone with eyes on the ground, with boots on the ground, and looking at the house, right? The condition of the house, the AVM can't assess. The fact that it's next to a junkyard or a house that's not well maintained, it can't assess. The fact that it's 5 blocks off the beach and there's $1 million homes on the beach, all it does is average the houses within a certain range. It doesn't take into account the fact that there's beach houses. There's a lot of issues that really you need somebody who knows the local real estate market to help you with that. Online searches are very useful. I tell my clients all the time, people have access to a lot more information than they used to. And there's pluses and minuses to that, right? You know a lot more, but also so does everyone else. You don't want to get caught up in the cons of those pros and cons. So one of the cons I talked about, getting hundreds of phone calls just because you expressed interest in a house on one of those big name home search websites. Data inaccuracy, falling in love with a house that's not even available. Or thinking that you know what a house is worth because you looked at one of these big name home search, their AVM, their automated valuation model, which are known to be wrong and have cost these companies hundreds of millions of dollars. Stay close with that agent that you picked in part 1 of this series. Stay close to that team member. Take their advice. They know the local area and they are going to be able to help you to have the success that you need. Second thing you need to think about is tours or showings. That's going to look at the house. The first thing is go in person. Pictures lie. I give my photographer a hard time all the time. It's like he sprinkles magic pixie dust over these pictures. They look amazing. Even if the house is really nice, it's just the lighting, the angles, it just makes everything look so good. Remember, pictures are intended to get people in the house. They don't necessarily sell the house. People in the house is what sells the house. If you can't be there in person, we can do some kind of a video call and then we can work through that. I've done it before. There are ways to protect you against, if you get to the house and you don't like it, we can talk about that later. Decision makers have to attend, preferably in person. If on video, it does work. Trusted advisors, your parents, your close friend, uncle, whatever, they should be there too. You don't want to have 1,000 people, but 3, 4, 5 people, not necessarily a bad thing. The difference, that difference between being in the house and looking pictures, that applies to them as well. So having them in the house does make a big difference. Be on time. Most of the time, the houses you're looking at are occupied. People live there. They could be working from home. They could have pets. They could have a health issue. It's important to be on time, to hit the time slot that you're targeted for, and be in and out. You could have other buyers before you, other buyers after you. If you have a 3:15 to 3:30 showing, you show up at 3:28 and want to go in there, but the 3:30 is about ready to go in, guess what? They're going to be upset and they may tell you, get out, it's our time. So make sure you're on time for the showing. The average tour is about 15 minutes. That's it. There is a lot going on and a lot to take in during that time. Having multiple eyes in the house, there's some value. You guys can all compare notes later. Also, talking about notes, bring a notepad, bring a pen, write down the things that you see, what you like, what you don't like. This goes back to your likes and your needs and wants, right? You'd be surprised how quickly the houses blend together. That being said, go look at multiple houses. Every house is different. Even if it's the same layout in 2 different locations, the location, the condition, the fit and finish, All of those things can be different, wildly different. So you want to go look at different houses to make sure that you're not closing yourself off to opportunities that are out there that you just didn't know about. Showings and tours are a very important part of the home search process. You need to make sure that you do the things that I talked about, and you'll have a lot more success. The third thing we need to talk about is sense of urgency. Going to be a little bit of tough love here. Everyone has priorities. Your actions speak clearly about what your true priorities are. If buying or selling is important, you are going to make the time to make it happen. Understanding the market condition, what I talked about in the first part of this series, is absolutely critical. The market today requires buyers to be on point. You need to be ready to go look at a house, make a decision, and move forward very, very quickly. The best houses, they're on the market a day, 2 days, maybe a little bit longer. That's it. There is no time to wait until next weekend. A guy I used to work with called me up, said, hey, my son's moving back into town. He lives out of town right now. He's ready to buy. He wants to get a house. While I was on the phone with this guy, the son texted me, said, hey, I need to connect with you. My dad said, blah, 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 blah. Can we connect? So that's a little bit of sense of urgency, right? I got off the phone with the dad, called the son, was talking to him. He had a couple of houses that he was interested in. We could see one of them that day. He said, I suggested that we go do a video tour. He said, I'm going to have my mom come with you. We'll go take a look at it. We went, looked at it, did the video tour. He loved it. We put an offer in that day. That is sense of urgency. Now, long story short, we didn't get that house initially, but it came back on the market, and we're under contract with that house, and it all happened in about a week in this market. So sense of urgency does make a difference. Not everyone can or wants to operate like that. I understand that. I will adjust to your pace. Higher sense of urgency, and this is an important point, higher sense of urgency does not guarantee that you will get the deal in this market. In a different market, in a buyer's market where there's not many buyers and lots of sellers, sense of urgency is going to help a heck of a lot in trying to get that deal. But even in this seller's market, you have to be in the game. You got to be in it to win it, right? So if you don't even get an offer submitted, then you don't have any chance of getting the deal. Sense of urgency is very important. Make sure that you are ready to go. As an agent, I'm obligated to bring buyers who are ready, willing, and able. And we talked about all those things in part 1 of the series. Being ready, knowing what you want, being willing, get ready to get out there, take a look at things, being able. You've got the financial wherewithal to make it happen. So keep that in mind. Sense of urgency, very important to be successful, especially in this seller's market. The final thing that I want to talk about is kind of a continuous improvement thing. It's adjusting your needs and wants as you learn. Bring your list of needs and wants with you on the showings. I told you in part 1 of the series, write down your needs and wants. I wasn't kidding. Write them down. Bring them with you. You're going to have 15 minutes in this house. If you see some shiny object over here that's really cool, but it's not a need, and it draws you toward that, you could end up buying a house that doesn't really work for you. Make sure that you're grounded in what you need and what you want, because during that 15 minutes, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of things you need to process. As you tour the home, you're going to learn a lot more about what you really like and what you don't like. Adjust your needs and wants as you go. It is perfectly fine. It's okay to change these things. You're not going to be 100% right on your wants and needs right out of the gate. Adjust them as you go. Unless you're lucky enough to find that perfect house on the first time out, which does happen, but it's rare. If you don't have that, you're going to have the opportunity to see a bunch of different homes. That's going to give you an opportunity to learn more about what's out there. It may open your eyes to possibilities that you thought were not real or didn't even know existed. So there's a lot of value in bringing those wants and needs with you, updating them as you go, and then reflecting on them. When you're ready to look at homes, doing these 4 things well will serve you well and give you a much higher chance of being successful. So that's it for part 2 of this series. In part 3, I'm going to talk about the offer. How do we put together the strongest offer for you, and what do you need to consider when we're putting the offer together? Hopefully this is valuable, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.